Breaking news, Donald Trump loses his appeal. But this might actually go up to the Supreme Court. For those that aren't familiar, not too long ago, people started suing Trump because he blocked them. And they argued he shouldn't be allowed to do that. It's a violation of the First Amendment. And a court said yes. And lawyers said, what? The decision seems to be kind of absurd. It's a private platform, and Trump is posting tweets. He should be able to block people, right? Well, the first court ruled that when he tweeted, he was creating an interactive public forum. And by restricting people from viewing or being involved in that forum because of their speech was a violation of the First Amendment. It was appealed by the Trump team, and they lost. So now we have a lot of lawyers saying, what? There's like ridiculous precedent being set here. And some people believe it may get overturned by the Supreme Court because it's still a wrong decision that has wide-reaching implications. I've got a thread by a lawyer on Twitter that we'll go through. First, we'll read the story, but more importantly, this is going to backfire hard against the left, notably Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who has blocked many people, but she can't. According to these federal rulings, she is not allowed to block people. Lawsuits are incoming. So let's read the story from the Wall Street Journal. It's very short, but we'll see what happened and why. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's a PayPal option, a crypto option, a physical address, but of course, share this video if you like it, because YouTube no longer has my videos appear in the suggestion feed. Yes, the video might get recommended on the front page, but it's not being suggested following other videos. So I rely on you guys to share this if you think people should hear what I have to say in these videos or the news. But let's read on. From the Wall Street Journal, President Trump can't block Twitter users, federal appeals court rules. Court says the practice of blocking users violates free speech protections. On its surface, sounds like a good thing, but there's a lot of implications. So let's read on. A federal appeals court in New York Tuesday ruled President Trump's practice of blocking some users on Twitter violates the free speech protections of the First Amendment. The ruling stems from a 2017 lawsuit filed by Columbia University's Knight First Amendment Institute on behalf of 7 people who had been blocked by the president's real Donald Trump account. In the opinion, Judge Barrington D. Parker of the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals wrote that a public official who uses a social media account for official purposes can't block users because he disagrees with their postings. The First Amendment does not permit a public official who, this is the quote, does not permit a public official who utilizes a social media account for all manner of official purposes to exclude persons from an otherwise open online dialogue because they expressed views with which the official disagrees, wrote Judge Parker, who was nominated to the appeals court by President Bush. The Second Circuit affirmed a ruling by the district court. Justice Department lawyers appealed the ruling. We have a quote from the Knight Foundation here. Quote, with public officials across the country increasingly using social media to communicate with and foster debate among their constituents, today's decision should make them think twice before hitting the block button when they don't like what someone has posted. Katie Fallow, a senior attorney at the Knight Institute, said in a statement. A spokeswoman for the Justice Department did not immediately respond to request for comment. Now, here's what's really, really interesting. The statement by the Knight Foundation, that public officials are increasingly using social media to communicate with and foster debate among their constituents. Full stop. What about people who have been banned by Twitter? They are now no longer able to access a public forum for debate with politicians due to the actions of private individuals. This is where things start to get really murky. If a public forum has been created, why should Twitter have the right to remove people for what they say? I believe this may actually result with the appeals ruling. I'm not a lawyer. We'll read what some lawyers have to say, but it feels like this might actually result in some lawsuits where they say a private company should not be allowed to restrict access to a public forum with debate on, with politicians. That would be like, AT&T, for instance. There's a phone conference happening, and AT&T says, we're going to block you from engaging with the president's conference. I don't know where the line is. Should a private company be allowed to remove you from a public event? Let's say Trump is holding a rally at an arena, one of his rallies. Can the company that owns the arena or the hangar or the field say, you specifically aren't allowed to hear what the president has to say? Honestly, don't know. But I think it's interesting if the event is open to the public, as Twitter is, but Twitter restricts your access to a public debate on issues, especially when Twitter's rules are specifically biased against conservatives, notably on the misgendering issue, right? Plain and simple. If someone or whatever the views, conservative or otherwise. If someone is a bigot, it's a legally protected opinion, meaning you can't shut someone down for having that opinion, even if they're, a bad person. Can a private company remove you from the public debate? That's where things get bad. So let's see what this lawyer has to say. Gabriel Malor has this great thread that was sent to me where he talks about why it's basically a bad idea. And my favorite tweet here is where he says it's essentially people hating Trump so much, they've just destroyed Twitter for everybody. So where is this one specific tweet? I'm not going to dwell too much on this. Here we go. He says, this is one of those decisions that is going to come back to bite. People hated Trump enough that they just impaired Twitter usage by all public officials and public entities. But boy, they sure showed Trump. And now we can see this from Will Chamberlain. He said, if you live in NYC, Connecticut, and AOC has blocked you, it's time to sue. But why NYC, Connecticut? Can't anyone sue AOC? She's a government, she's a federal representative, right? She sure, it's a district in New York, but she's in the federal government. So she should be able to restrict access to anybody, right? Joey Salads says already on it. So I'm not sure if he publicly announced this before, but Joey is saying he's going to sue Ocasio-Cortez in the exact same way they've sued Trump. Thus, this ruling is going to backfire on the left because they're the ones who want the protections. They're the ones who advocate for the hate speech rules and the censorship. Well, congratulations. Now the left-wing politicians are not allowed to block people. But let's see what Gabriel had to say and why it's a bad decision. So he goes on to cite the initial decision, but he says, this is a garbage decision. Twitter lacks the features traditionally associated with public forums, which is why this panel and the district court below strains to discover this interactive space theory. He says, I'm skeptical about this interactive space business being a designated public forum because it leaps over the issue that Trump isn't in primary control over how users can see and interact with that space. That control lies more with Twitter itself and individual users. He cites a paragraph, I'm not going to read it, but he goes on to say, if Twitter automatically converts into a public forum when a public official uses it, then axiomatically, the First Amendment is violated if the public official uses Twitter to impede speech he disagrees with. So you would think that the panel would handle the issue of whether Twitter is actually a public forum with more care, but no. There was another way out here, but the panel forecloses it too, holding that when a public official tweets, it is always state action and never private action. Essentially, Trump is never off Twitter, even though this too bizarrely curtails his own rights. He goes on to say, basically, what that means is that even when they leave office, look at this. He says, while one would hope former public officials could regain a private space on Twitter once out of office, but that doesn't follow from the decision's reasoning either. The public character of the interactive space exists independent of the public official. It's very disappointing how unreasoned this decision is. These are important questions, and the opinion barely nods at them before thunking its preferred conclusion down and walking away. Essentially, while this will impact Trump, it is absolutely going to impact everyone. And in the end, what I think is going to happen, what he said was, even after you get out of office, congratulations. When Ocasio-Cortez leaves office, she will not be able to block people. That doesn't make sense. So I was told by some people it will probably go to the Supreme Court. And they may actually shoot it down because basically every lawyer is saying this is wrong. It's bad. But while we have that, and I will just briefly mention people are now suing Ocasio-Cortez, there's another interesting feature that Twitter is rolling out. This news breaking today. Twitter says it has new rules to curb hate speech targeting religious groups. And they specifically talk about anyone using a religious group, any religious group, and saying certain things. So BuzzFeed writes, on Tuesday, Twitter announced an expansion of policies around hateful content that dehumanizes others based on their religion. Following this update, the company will now require the removal of tweets that dehumanize whole religious groups, like those seen below when they're reported to the company. Think about this. This is why I do not agree with hate speech policies. In the 90s and the 2000s, and this is the example I often give, people were denouncing Christian conservatives for resisting gay marriage and gay rights. When I grew up, A lot of people routinely said disparaging things about Christians. Congratulations. You can't do that anymore. People have the right to their opinion to say your religion is bad and I disagree with you, right? No, Twitter won't allow it. Twitter, listen, what makes Twitter interesting is the debate. Granted, there are a lot of problems with it because people go crazy, but removing all of the flavor to leave a bland vanilla, okay, I'm sorry, that was offensive to vanilla lovers. Vanilla is its own unique flavor. But let's just say sweet cream ice cream. That's literally ice cream with no flavor in it. People don't normally buy that. They want cookies in it. They want brownie bits. Twitter is removing everything and being like, don't eat ice cream, here's a glass of milk. I like a glass of milk. It's not bad, but it's certainly not ice cream. Ice cream is what we really wanted. I love using ice cream references. You may notice that whenever I do this, I talk about ice cream. Anyway, the point is, Twitter is systematically removing all of the flavor because people won't stop complaining and they're catering to the squeaky wheels. I wonder how this will relate with their recent ruling. You are not allowed to criticize a religious group. You can say, you can't call them viruses. You can't say, we don't want more of a religious group in this country. Religious groups should be punished. We are not doing enough to rid us of those filthy animals. So I wonder, each of these contains an insult, calling them rats, viruses, maggots, or animals. Are you allowed to say, I think religious group is dangerous and bad? Is Farrakhan going to get banned? These are specific examples of what Farrakhan says. So maybe they're preparing a way to ban him. But anyway, this video won't be long. I have a major announcement that's coming up in the next segment, youtube.com/Timcast. For those on the podcast, you already heard it because it's the first segment in this. But I'll leave it here. There's your update. Donald Trump loses his appeal, but this will backfire. Stick around. 4 p.m. youtube.com/TimCastNews. There will be a huge announcement. I will see you there. Thanks for hanging out.